just take all the time in the world and the opportunities you have to appreciate that you're really young and there's all these things in front of you that you have no idea what's in store, but say yes to more things, do things that are uncomfortable, do things that are weird, and just, you might find something that you love, and you might find something that in 10 years ends up being the most important thing you ever did. Again, it's not extreme rocket science in my mind, even though some people don't understand half the things I just said previously talked about. That's a crime in itself. Like, I don't think anything I said is extremely complex or extremely difficult. It's just like eat roughly 100 grams of protein a day, depending on who you are and your body size. And that number varies. And how do you figure out that number? Well, go do some research, Google. Like, that's pretty much how you figure out the number that's appropriate for you. Like, roughly, most people aren't extreme high performance athletes who need the exact amount of protein and fats and carbs daily. I'm a high performance athlete and I don't track any of that to a T. Lay off some carbs, lay off some fats, eat a lot of protein, work out hard, push yourself in the gym. And if I want to lose some weight, I've been mixing in runs in the morning just to help kickstart my days and like burn some more calories and like stuff like that. Not all calories are made the same either. Not all calories, just because it says 0 calories doesn't mean it doesn't affect what your body does. And just like it says some things are 200 calories, not all 200 calories are made the same either. So some people don't understand that part of it and they just are so micro focused on calories. Not all calories processed in your body the same.
Only because Ryan and I eat similarly how you do as well. For those of you guys that are tuning in and aren't aware of what we're talking about, like Ben is talking about, go ahead and do some research on it, but you can definitely teach yourself how to read the back of labels, where I am always constantly reading the back of labels. So if you're ordering or buying a stick of butter, for example, and that stick of butter has like 15 or 16 ingredients in it, that is mostly chemicals and Lord knows what else. If you can't even read what those words say, you probably don't want to be putting it into your body. So if you're looking for something like a butter, you want it to simply just say salt, cream, and that's basically it. Salt and cream. Like all that should be in your butter. Like same thing with cheese, right? Like you want to have 4 or 5 ingredients in your cheese, or like whatever the shortest ingredients are in each thing. If you're looking at strawberry jam, for example, and it says like high fructose corn syrup with added flavoring and this, that, and the other thing, and all these extra sugars and such, you probably don't want to buy that. You can just buy your own fruit and make your own fruit spreads and things like that. We agree with you, Ben. Ryan and I try to do the same thing. Again, nobody is perfect. Everybody kind of segues and cheats a little bit here and there on their diet. The 80-20 rule. So like 80% of the time, if you're eating healthy and properly, the other 20% of the time, if you're cheating a little bit, your body's going to kind of stay balanced. So go ahead, guys. If you guys are tuning in right now, do some research on how to eat properly for your body type and what your lifestyle is like. But also more importantly, like reading labels, like staying away from preservatives, staying away from things like dyes, staying away from all the added junk and the GMO and such.
Stay away from big words.
Also, sometimes those foods can be costly and pricey, and we get that as well. But I like to tell people this is the big thing. If you are going out and you're buying a bag of Doritos and you're buying Cheetos and all these foods that are just loaded and processed and have all these dyes and such, and yes, they might cost a little bit less money than if you were to buy something more whole food. And by whole foods, I mean buying some actual cheese and making your own homemade Cheez-Its. In the long run, if you're doing that preventatively to keep yourself from getting sick, like diabetes or cancer, you're actually saving yourself money. So that's how I like to look at it, right? You might be saving money at the beginning by buying Doritos and things like that. But if you end up getting something like cancer or diabetes or another illness from eating these foods and being around the toxicity versus just like spending the money on better food, in the long run, in my opinion, you're actually saving yourself money and your own health. So Ryan and I preach that, and we talk that all the time amongst ourselves and amongst our friends. So it's nice to talk about it a little bit on the podcast. So Ben, thank you for bringing that up. I fully enjoyed having you talk a little bit about training and how you eat properly and your early years and things like that. We'll switch into talking about college baseball. I know that you went to the University of Kentucky. I know that you brought that up earlier in this episode, and we both both kind of talked about it already. Can you discuss your time lightly playing college baseball? I know it was some time ago, but if you could share any top memories there, anything fun that might have happened while you were living in Kentucky, because I feel like that'll segue perfectly into playing with the High Point Rockers as well.
Well, I went to two different junior colleges. I graduated class of 14 out of high school, didn't have any offers. Quick little background about Arizona. At the time when I was in high school, there was two Division I universities in the state of Arizona. There was Arizona State University and University of Arizona. And usually if you were going to one of those two schools as an Arizona like high school baseball player, you were probably getting drafted and you probably weren't going there if you were like actually really good and supposed to go to those schools. I wasn't that level of player. So that's why junior college baseball in Arizona is such an important thing. Now, Grand Canyon is also a really good program who adds a third school into the mix of like they get high level high school talent that's necessarily not going to be drafted that season. So I went to junior college. I went to El Paso Community College for a semester for the fall of 2014. I actually quit baseball. I left that school. I tried to get my release from my scholarship. I couldn't do it. And I just kind of decided that baseball's not for me, walked away. I was walking to the bus stop to go to work one day, probably about a month later. And I still don't know what popped this thought into my head and what made me make the decision. But I was like, you should go play baseball again. Like, you can still do it. You're like, go play baseball again. And I started working out for some schools. I ended up at Phoenix College in Arizona for 2 years. Junior college baseball was awesome. I loved Phoenix College. I actually helped coach there because I got stuck in Arizona a little bit longer than I wanted to be there this past spring. It was great. It was great to be around to give back to that program. And I love those kids. I love that school. It was just an awesome experience from top to bottom. We went to the World Series there. I got recruited to the Kentucky late in my sophomore season and went to Kentucky for that year. I'm not afraid to talk about it because our time at my time at Kentucky wasn't exactly great. We were supposed to be a really good team that year. I think it was like one of the highest preseason rankings they ever had there. You know, in some polls we were top 5, some polls we were top 10, just kind of depended. And halfway through the year, we were at least top 10 in every single poll. No one had us above 8, I think. Didn't really stay healthy, kind of wildly underperformed as a team, and we didn't even make a regional. That one year I was at Kentucky and I got drafted to the Phillies. So the memories weren't exactly what they should have been. I mean, I love Lexington. Went back there, finished my degree in 21, and it was great, but it was definitely not, oh yeah, I was extremely good in high school. I got recruited to this school, this school, and this school. Like, no, I was lucky to get a college offer out of high school and I hit 400 my senior year in Arizona, and then kind of grew into my body a little bit. And that's where kind of it started to take off a little bit. Was I wasn't just a corner infielder who mainly played first base and could hit. I kind of just grew into my body and I became, started focusing not just on weightlifting, but what I was eating, what I was doing in my off time away from lifting and baseball. Just kind of became more of an athlete and passed more of the quote unquote eye test of when it comes to looking at a player, what is he going to be?
So yeah, I know that your road to college baseball and then into the pros was kind of like non-conventional. And I know that like everybody's road to playing pro sports is a little bit different. There's no like clear-cut way to getting into a pro sport. Like everybody just thinks you go to college, you get drafted, here you are. And that's not necessarily always the way that it goes. So I appreciate you sharing your side to the journey. When it comes to going back to visiting Kentucky or being in Kentucky, is there anything that you enjoy doing that kind of reminds you of being back when you were there for college? Like what memories start to spark when you think of the state of Kentucky?
So when I went back to Kentucky to finish my degree, I had just gotten released after the Phillies. And ironically enough, I was coming off of the second time I'd quit baseball. And the Lexington Legends in the Atlantic League, they've made their way through names now, but I think they're going back to the Legends again this year. They called me, signed a contract, decided to go play. It was kind of just like a summer job at the time. But I remember when I was going back there, and now when I go back there, it's less about like the memories I made as a student athlete there and more as the memories I made as just a student and then turning into like being an athlete again. And just the growth I had as a human being and all the things that I took with me at learning, not just what it took day to day and, being someone who wasn't just a professional athlete or just an athlete. I think more about those things than I think about the memories I had when I was a college student. Cause like my time as a college student was very brief and it was like most student athletes, it was filled with a lot of study hall, a lot of practice, a lot of time spent sleeping, and a lot of time spent at practice and games and traveling. And like I said, it flew by very fast. And for 1 year, it was kind of like I try to remember all the memories that happened and they pop in from time to time. I think more about when I was there in 2021 for that entire year and those things that happened along that time. Like I just think about the adversity and the growth I had as a person and finishing my degree and having one of the best seasons I've ever had and winning a championship in Lexington. Like all those things that year amounted to were really cool and really special. And on top of that, like Kentucky is a little home. Like they take really good care of the players who played there and went on to play professionally and came back. And they do a really good job of making sure that those athletes feel loved. And there's people who still come visit me at Lexington Legends games when we play there for High Point. And God, I remember you, like even some of the umpires, like, oh, I remember you at Kentucky. And I was like, I was there for like 1 year, and there's players who play here for 4 years. And how do you remember these college athletes and stuff like that? It's just a really cool experience going back and seeing, the friends and the little family I have there that is just always awesome to be around.
What advice would you give to any future student athletes that are currently tuning in on how to stay well balanced and productive?
This kind of goes for high school athletes too, but not everything is so as microscopic and under a microscope that it feels at the time. Like everything that you do isn't the end of the world, or everything you do isn't going to impact everything. Now, there are some decisions you can make that do impact everything. I'd argue that 90% of them aren't going to matter in, 3 to 4 years. Say yes more and do everything you possibly can to just grow and learn things about yourself through the entire time, not just as a player or as a student or as someone who's making friends and building relationships with people. Just take all the time in the world and the opportunities you have to appreciate that you're really young and there's all these things in front of you that you have no idea what's in store, but say yes to more things, do things that are uncomfortable, do things that are weird, and just, you might find something that you love, and you might find something that in 10 years ends up being the most important thing you ever did. You just don't know at the time. And if you say no and you kind of just stay in this one direct lane, like you're going down like, oh, I'm just going to get drafted, or I'm going to really focus on school. So that way, when I get done playing, school's going to be there. You just hyper focus on one lane, you're going to miss out on a lot of different things that you're going to look back at and be like, man, I wish I would have done that. Feel that way now. And even at the time, like, especially when I think of Kentucky, there were a lot of things that I'm like, God, I wish I could have just done that differently. I've grown out of that, but there's a lot of things I just wish I would have handled a little bit differently than I did at the time.
I truly enjoy that you started to share the story of kind of how at one point you almost just completely quit and wanted to give up on the sport of baseball, even though you had such a passion for it. And you do now, obviously, you kind of like relearned the passion of the sport again with going from playing college baseball to then getting drafted. And then all of a sudden you are now with the High Point Rockers. What has that whole experience been like? I know you are very passionate about playing with the Rockers. We see it in you on and off the field all of the time. You can truly see your like face light up when you're stepping up at the plate or you make a great play. Or like I said, even when you're not on the field and you're just kind of hanging out with some of the little Rockers fans, like giving them hugs and signing the autographs and playing catch with little cuties like Penn, who we know Penn is one of your biggest fans. So shout out to Penn if him and his mom are listening in right now, which I'm sure that they will be. People like that, they enjoy seeing you. They show up there with the signs and they're truly excited to have you be a part of the High Point community. Being with a community and being with the team like the High Point Rockers, how has that like re-sparked your love for the sport of baseball?
Big reason why I'm still playing. I told Annie, we were about a year into our relationship after my first year with the Rockers. And I told her, I was like, if things stay pretty similar to where they're at right now, and I'm playing in High Point, and I have the amazing host family I do. I have Jamie, I have incredible teammates, I have the community of High Point. Like, why am I in such a rush? Like, I understand that there's a time where, you got to start doing the life things of kids, wife, like all those things that go into it. Kept saying, like, when I was playing with Lexington, that was supposed to be my last year. And then that first year with High Point, that was supposed to be my last year. And like, after that season was over, I kind of just realized, hey, God has a plan for everyone, and he's directing you to these people and these places for a reason. So stop trying to look for reasons to get out and start looking at the reasons why you're in the right place, doing the right things. And I feel the impact that I have on people as positive for the most part. I don't think there's too many people I impact negatively by playing baseball. And I think a lot of people enjoy watching me play. I take those things as the reason why I still play, like on top of just more than the community of High Point, but the smiles I can bring to faces because it's not just me, it's our entire team, it's our entire organization. Jamie does a phenomenal job at building a team and putting the right guys in the locker room. So it's not just me who enjoys it a lot. Like our entire team has a great time doing it. And we all have a lot of fun. And High Point makes it a lot easier for all of us to enjoy what we do because High Point's not the final destination, hopefully, for any of us, but it is for some of us. And, we want to remember that last year is something that we really enjoyed and the community was really awesome to us. And we try to reciprocate that by not just playing good baseball, but bringing joy to everyone's life while we do it and doing it the right way. And all those things tie into the community of High Point and why they brought the Rockers there in the first place. And, having something to do and having a team that they care about. And I don't know how the soccer team is going to work this year, but hopefully, they have a similar idea. I know they're tied to the MLS team in Charlotte, but hopefully they have a similar idea of no, the soccer team's not just going to use our field, but they're hopefully going to buy into the community a little bit and appreciate the community being around for having that team there. So, because those are the things I really love about High Point, and that's why I continue to play for Jamie and High Point, unless there's a different opportunity outside of the Atlantic League and independent baseball. Like that's kind of where I expect to be for the future.
And you kind of just answered my question right there, where for those of you guys that are tuning in, does Ben potentially plan on being back with the High Point Rockers the season that we're currently in? It sounds like the answer is yes, if he is not given the opportunity to play with in affiliated ball or maybe somewhere overseas. It sounds like he would love to play with the High Point Rockers again, because why would you not? There is such a great environment there. He already knows the fan base, the coaches. I know a lot of the team itself will change and will switch up year to year. I mean, that's the same with every sport, but that is great to know that you could potentially be back with us this upcoming season. And I wanted to talk briefly about the end of the 2023 season, because for me, it still sticks out in my head. We had such a fantastic 2023 baseball season, start, middle, and end, aside from how it ended, of course, which we will discuss shortly. But I truly thought, Ben, that this was going to be the season that we were going to win the championship. We had the team, we had the coaches, the way that we performed on the field, like under pressure. Like I thought then that the 2023 season was the season that we were going to come home with championship rings. And I knew that the players knew it too, because when we lost that first round of the playoffs and all of us, the season ended at home. And I remember all of us, just like most of the team, some of the fans, we all kind of just hung our heads and we're like, wow, like how was the season over? How did this just happen? A lot of us just kind of hung out on the field and like gave each other hugs and kind of cried it out, so to speak, literally and figuratively, because kind of like you just spoke about earlier, some players that might have been their last season playing, and they might have been like, I know it makes me teary-eyed, but like processing the fact that that might have been the last time that they ever put their cleats on, given that perspective of like a player knowing that it's like their last season playing and wrapping up such a fun year. What did that feel like for you to be there and feel all those emotions?
I mean, losing sucks. It does still really bother me that we did lose that series and the season ended the way it did. It was tough. You're right. The team we had all the right pieces. Unfortunately for us, going into game 3, we had 2 guys go down who got sick. We had another guy who got, shout out Jeremy Rhodes, but he got hit in the face. And then, he was done for the series, 5-game series. Game 3, it's a 1-1 series. And we really needed those 3 pitchers. And you just can't win games when you're down 3 important pieces of your team, especially when it comes to pitching. And you're playing a 5-game series and you're playing like a team like Gastonia, who's good, who had faced us many times. Our pitching just kind of got hurt at the wrong time and there was nothing we could really do about it. Yeah, it hurts that might be the last game for some people. And it really does bother me that that's how it went out. And I look at the season overall, there was a lot of fun. There was a lot of memories that we had. There was a lot of good times. There wasn't a lot of bad, really. There's nothing that I would be more happy than to tell people, hey, yeah, that was their last season ever playing. Because for the most part, like I said, we had a lot of fun and we were really good for a lot of the year. And if we just could have stayed healthy, it might have ended differently. I know Lancaster had a really good team. That would have been a really fun series. But whoever won between us and Gastonia, because of the weather and how it played out, we would have gotten a bus right after that game on Monday at noon to go play Tuesday night. I think something else happened to where they played Tuesday night, but something weird happened at the beginning of that series where like somebody was banged up and hurt or something happened with the bus. I don't remember exactly, but somehow that series was even worse than just because we're supposed to get that travel day, but because of weather, like our game got pushed back and stuff. I remember you could look at Gastonia, that opening game, when we were all saying our goodbyes, we turned it on just to look at it, and you could look at Gastonia and they were gassed, and we would have looked the exact same way playing in Lancaster that first game, just because of how long the season is and then how our series was. It was a grind, to say the least, and yeah, it really sucks we lost. Still hurts a lot.
Yeah, for me, even too, just like thinking about it, I sometimes get teary eyed thinking about it because I enjoy being with the team and the whole camaraderie of the being with the fans and the energy and the atmosphere and coaches and the players. It's such a fun morale to be around all the time. And just the way that season ended, I could still picture it as if it was yesterday. And because I myself stood there, I mean, I was very pregnant at the time, so that's probably why I got a little bit more emotional. But I remember like watching you kind of stand out in the outfield in your position a little bit longer, like when the game ended, and Ryan and some of the other guys took to the field and like hugged each other or like stood in their position, and just kind of having that like self-reflection moment. I wanted to talk about that because again, things like this are not talked about much on a podcast or in general. You get to see the professional athlete or listen to them talk about something that happens, especially not making it to the next round of playoffs after having such a fantastic season. And again, some people, that could have been their last game ever playing. And what is that whole mindset behind it? So thank you for being able to like vocalize that with me. As we start to wrap up this podcast episode, you've been fantastic. You guys all know that this is like an audible journal. I love having my special guests on here multiple times. So I'm sure Ben will join me on here again at some point, maybe in the middle of the Rocker season. I'm sure I'll be creating content with him on the field as well. I'll try to get some other Rockers players on here throughout the season scattered so you guys can hear from them firsthand what's going on during the season. I'm sure Ryan will be joining us on here. But as we start to wrap up talking with Ben, he's been doing fantastic. If you can kind of like ramble off some of your top memories thus far within the Rockers organization, and then also what does your future with baseball look like? And I know you played briefly in Mexico this offseason, so if you can kind of just hit all of those bullet points for me, that would be beautiful.
Well, the Rockers memories are endless. I'd never hit a walk-off home run until I got to the Rockers in 22. Pretty early in the year, I hit a home run, a walk-off home run, and that was a really cool experience. I remember I hit another walk-off home run in 22 where we were down 5 in the 9th inning, and I remember actually cashing it in thinking like this game's over, and we came back and won, and that was awesome. Like those are just two of the memories, but there's just so many little things about whether it be being in the clubhouse or talking to Jamie, well, more like yelling to Jamie during the before the games in his office, because anyone who knows Jamie knows he doesn't exactly talk quietly. Same with Frank Viola. So those like the little things like that are just always awesome to be around. And like I said, it's a little family that I have in High Point inside that locker room, and then my actual little family I have with Dick and Evie Cottom. Shout out to them, they're great, and all the Cottom family. They're phenomenal people, and I love them so much. Yeah, I did end up in Mexico this winter. It was kind of unexpected. Our season ended, like you said, early October, and I was supposed to be around Charlotte for like a month until I went back to Arizona for the holidays, and I was around Charlotte for like 2 days because I got a call to go to Mexico, and they bought me a flight 2 days later. Mexico was cool. I was a little beat up. Not that I was like actually hurt, but we played a long season, and I wasn't expecting to play immediately after our season was over to go to Mexico. So I just mentally wasn't prepared to do that, and trying to flip that switch again was pretty difficult, but it was, visiting the world and seeing different parts of the world are never a bad thing. One that I don't speak the language of. I know almost no Spanish. It's a real problem in my life. I need to figure that out. It was cool. It was an experience that I'll never forget. I'll remember a lot of things about it, and more than baseball, because of the situations I was put in, the emotions I felt throughout all of it, just because I don't speak Spanish, and trying to communicate with people when you're the problem. Like, I don't want to say the problem, but like I'm the reason that I can't communicate in that country because they do speak Spanish. There's a lot of learning curves about it, but it was a good off season. I was fortunate enough to be able to go do that. Or I went back to Charlotte, and I've been here a little bit right before we get our season going here soon. And it's been a great time. It's been an off season filled, like real busy and real relaxed all at the same time.
And as far as like your upcoming baseball opportunities, it sounds like you are going to just continue to go with the flow, play as long as you, I guess, are passionate about it, which I guess a lot of players will do that. Most players will play either until either A, they have an injury that they can no longer play anymore, which understandably so. B, they just phase out of the game, which obviously that happens too. Or C, they just want to continue their career and move on to coaching or do something else, and they choose to leave the sport. In your case, obviously you have a couple more years than you're still pretty young, Ben, so we're looking forward to seeing what happens, whether you play with the Rockers another couple seasons. Maybe you'll get picked up by affiliate ball and we'll see you kind of make your trend upward in that way. So best of luck with that. I want to talk briefly about the off season and then we'll start to wrap up. I know you're currently spending some time in Charlotte. We love your girlfriend, Annie. I'm looking forward to starting to see her hopefully at the ballpark again. I already know this answer, but how did you guys meet? What are some of your favorite fun date nights that you guys like to do? What do you both enjoy most about Charlotte? And what else do you guys have going on pre-baseball season?
We met on Bumble. That's pretty much it. We met on Bumble and went from there. It took me a while the thing with baseball, it's tough to let someone into your life because baseball is not an easy life to live with a significant other. We met on Bumble early 2021, started officially dating towards the end of 2021. I live here in Charlotte with her whenever I can because baseball, I bounce around quite a bit. I'd say my favorite date night is just a nice home cooked meal, which we do every night. So I guess every night's date night in my mind. She doesn't like that answer because she likes to go do things and other things. One of her favorite activities is she loves going to walk on the rail trail. We live right next to the rail trail, so we go and walk all up and down it. And she loves seeing all the doggos and begs me to get a dog all the time. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We're just hanging out, waiting to see. I'll be back in High Point more than likely, so season will get rolling here soon. And until then, we're just spending some quality time, making sure that we're both trying to get a little bit healthier and get into the best shape we possibly can, and get rolling through till my next season, and I should say our next season because she's always there with me. So
I love that you said our season because for those of you guys that are tuning in and listening, it is very much part of the wife or girlfriend or whatever the player's significant other is. It's definitely a big part of their life because you're at the games, you're watching, you're sometimes traveling with them. And if you're not doing those things, you're at home with the kids or the dogs or tending to the house while they're on the road. And it is a big sacrifice, but it is a lot of fun. And it is great to watch and support your partner that enjoys doing something that they truly love and that they're passionate about. So whether your significant other is a player and then they turn into a coach, or they are a coach or the general manager of the team, or whatever the case may be, if you are with somebody in the sports world, you just have to be very trusting and aware of the fact that they are on the road a lot. But when it comes to the off season, they are definitely around a lot more. And funny enough, Ryan and I, we enjoy traveling. We like to go to Florida in the off season. I like to go up north to visit my friends and family, and we like to take little trips here and there. But it's funny and ironic that, kind of like Ben just said, right? Ben just said that he likes to do date nights at home. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm assuming that one of the reasons why he likes to do date nights at home is because he's not home that much. He enjoys simply just having a nice home cooked meal, gets to spend time with his girlfriend. They don't have to go anywhere. They could actually enjoy their house. To be perfectly frank, we are the exact same way. Ryan's on the road 6-7 months out of the year, whether he's coaching or playing. And I do the same thing. I'm at the ballpark very often because I also work at the ballpark myself. So when it comes to the off season, I enjoy just freaking walking my dog, going on little hikes, and making dinner at home. And people look at me like I have 10 heads. What are you guys going to go do on your off season? Are you going to go on dates? Are you going to do this? You're going to do that? And it's like, yeah, the answer is yes. Of course we go out to dinner. Of course we go get ice cream. Of course we go on little quick weekend trips and things like that. But to just be home and be able to sleep in your own bed and to be able to cook a freaking home cooked meal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for even 3 or 4 days in a row is a luxury that people take for granted, because we don't have that luxury because the way that our careers are focused. And again, we love it. We love being on the road. We love doing things, but it's our vacation is our home. And it's funny because we were watching this TV show last night. It's called Insane Pools. So here's the new TV show for you, Ben, if you're interested. You can find it on demand. But anyways, it's this company out of Florida. Long story short, they make these like really awesome pools, like custom pools, like they deck them out. And they were actually creating a pool for this professional golfer. And he literally said the same thing. He's like, I want my house to be my vacation spot because I travel so much for work, like 9 months out of the year, that the 3 months out of the year where I actually get to be home, I don't want to have to go anywhere. Like, this is my vacation. How do you enjoy spending your off season and just being at home and being able to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner at your house?
It was a wild off season for me, so I didn't get to spend a lot of time with Andy, ironically enough, because well, first I went to Mexico, and then I haven't been home in a couple years, so I like made it a priority. I'm gonna go home for the holidays. When I went home for the holidays, I was met by a jury duty summons. Initially, the jury duty was supposed to be when I was in Mexico, so I obviously couldn't serve it then. And the earliest I could delay it to was February 12th. I had to go to jury duty. So the options were either come back to Charlotte when I was supposed to right around the turn of the new year after the holidays were all over and, spend however much money it would be to buy a one-way flight, then a one-way flight back like last minute because I don't know how long I'm going to have to serve jury duty for. Annie graciously just said, no, stay there. Come back as soon as you're done and we'll figure it out from there. And she's been, I want to say great because she still loves me. And I understand how hard it was to have me. I was basically gone for pretty much the entire off season. She visited me one weekend in December. The jury duty was over. So like right around her birthday, right around February 17th was when I got back to Charlotte and we've been enjoying our off season together. We've been having a great time. She'll adjust quickly like she always does. And it's not an easy thing to do. And I say it like oh yeah, it just happens. But there's a lot of discussions and hard conversations that go into that. And like any relationship, you tackle the tough conversations as hard as like the best you can. And, you come out on the other side, hopefully being better than you were before.
Well, Ben, you were absolutely freaking fantastic. I fully enjoyed having you on here for this 2-part podcast special. Looking forward to seeing you this season on the field, off the field, getting to spend some downtime, hopefully with you and Annie. You guys can swing by and hang out at the pool. Again, I know that that's going to be limited because none of us are really home that much. We know how that goes. It's funny enough because, again, Ben and Annie like don't live that far from us, but because none of us are really home that often, especially in season, we don't really get to see each other that much. But I guess the flip side is the guys spend so much time on the road together that maybe they kind of want to break from each other too. So I understand that, being able to spend time with your significant other. But as we wrap up, Ben, I just want to thank you so much for coming on here. I know the listeners fully enjoyed. Guys, stay with us. We're going to have so much more great content coming the rest of the spring. Ben, shout out your social media. Where can people follow you? And of course, guys, if you live in the High Point, North Carolina area or any of the Triad and you want to watch Ben play, go to the High Point Rockers website or their social media. You'll have their full schedule listed right there. And there are lots of great home games. Sometimes they have double headers if there's like a rain out. There's a lot of great activities at the ballpark for the kids. They have a playground and a splash pad and ice cream, and it's just a great overall environment for the kids and families in general. But Ben, yeah, go ahead. Shout out your social media.
My social media is kind of lame, but it's at Benetton. Yeah, my social media is kind of lame. I don't really post on it a lot. Ironically enough, Andy being a social media manager, senior social media manager. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not a big social media guy. I get on it, I browse on it. As of posting my things, I'm very not good about it. So you want to go follow? Have fun. Not a lot there.
Honestly, my husband's the same exact way. He doesn't really spend the time posting that often, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because obviously you guys are busy doing other things. But I appreciate you. Again, if you guys want to see him or any of the other guys in action, check out the High Point Rockers social media and also their website and get some tickets. We'll see you guys at the ballpark. Thank you.
Thanks,
Ben.
Brittany.